Bridget Shipman here from Mother's Guide Through Autism. And for today's episode, I wanted to share the interview that I did for the Autism Detective Radio Show with Patricia Lemer. I had so much fun talking to Patty. She has become a friend, a mentor, and she is also part of the team with Mother's Guide Through Autism through the eyes of the guided book. Patty helped edit this book. She gave us great insight. This is really Joseph's first time as an author, and also my first time with a book release. So we have such a great time in this interview. I talk about the background of the book, also the journey when Joseph was first diagnosed and what that was like for me. I also talk about ways to incorporate self-compassion and how to do it a little bit at a time where you don't get so overwhelmed, and how essential it is to practice self-compassion. So we really had a great conversation, and I thought you would enjoy this interview with Patty and I hope you do enjoy it. So here it is.
Hello, welcome to the Autism Detectives. Today is a big day for my guest, Brigitte Shipman, and she can tell you what's going on. Hi, Brigitte.
Hi, Patty. I'm so excited. As you well know, you've been a part of this process, but I am holding Mother's Guide Through Autism book, and it's in my hands. So
oh my goodness,
love is here.
This has been a long journey for you, hasn't it, Brigitte? You are a mom of a 30-year-old son, Joseph, and he helped you write this book.
He did. And what I absolutely love about it is that we each get to share our own perspectives, and that since I am actually holding the physical book, it even feels deeper and more meaningful.
Of course.
Than the discussions and seeing it in two dimensions. And in 3 dimensions, when you flip the book over, you get to see Joseph's cover through the eyes of the guided, and it just is full circle. That's what it feels like for me right now. And that doesn't sound, those words are not a true representation of how I'm feeling, but it's as close as I can get right now.
It's sometimes hard to put emotions into words. They're not translatable. You've really choked me up, too, because I'm honored to have been a part of this book. I did some editing for you and Joseph, and I'm just so honored, Brigitte, to have contributed what I could to making this book the best it could be.
And that you did, and it's so exciting to open it up and see your name and Joseph's name and my niece's name for the photos. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience, and I know, but I'm going to say I hope, that this book will give the same feeling of healing that it has been for me to write it.
So healing is a big word for you, isn't it?
It is.
And why don't you tell our listeners a little bit of your healing story?
Yes, I would love to. I refer to life challenges as life tsunamis, and when I first thought about writing this book, Joseph was in fact in elementary school, and so many things in my life took place. I got hit with one life tsunami, which is a huge life challenge, after another. So the vision of the original intention of this book never came to be. So it was living inside of me for 20 plus years.
Wow.
And what I discovered, and this is where I'm very passionate in my work right now, is to offer other moms or parents or anyone who's actually looking for a way to heal their heart on this autism journey, because you can find joy and peace and love along the journey. Or, what I did was I didn't heal my heart. I didn't grieve. I didn't address what I was feeling. And as a result, I've shared
you got sick?
Before. Oh, yes. I became a type 1 diabetic. My system started to break down. And even with all that, I wasn't listening. I didn't understand, nor did I have the tools to be able to take a breath and give myself the same nurturing that I was giving to everybody else but myself. And as a result, my journey wasn't as pleasant as it could have been. It caused more stress in addition to all the stress that I was already under, and I didn't get to enjoy a lot of my life that I feel like I could have had I had these tools.
So when life threw you a lot of curveballs and these tsunamis, you just weren't listening, were you? And so it just took more and more and more. What was the final tsunami that you finally listened? Was it getting sick, having type 2 diabetic diagnosis?
Well, honestly, I became a type 1, which is juvenile diabetes at the age of 39, which is not common. So my pancreas doesn't work at all, just like when a child develops type 1. But, again, I was 39 years old, so my body took longer to break down. Perhaps. We don't really know why I'm diabetic. I get lots of answers. Some believe it was a virus. Some believe my immune system just couldn't handle the constant stress because, we live in fight or flight. And I was fighting under and carrying all this grief, and it just kept piling up.
Right. So it really was total load, wasn't it?
It was, and it just kept getting heavier and heavier. But I think what finally changed for me was when I discovered the Martha Beck life coach training, and it was approximately a 2-year program at the time, and what I discovered were tools. And so as I was becoming a life coach, I was also learning how to heal my own heart. And that's where all these ahas, that's where I made the real transformation.
So for our listeners who aren't familiar with Martha Beck, she was a mom who also had a huge aha moment and turned her life around and started this health coach training program. When she was in graduate school, she became pregnant with what she later discovered was a child with Down syndrome. And she and her husband, who I believe were at Harvard, who thought that intelligence was the most important thing anybody could have, were told that they were going to be parents of a child who may have limited intelligence. And so they had to make a life choice. And her book, I can't remember the name of it. Do you know the title of it? I think it's Saving Adam.
It is, yes.
So that tells you, of course, the outcome, but it's a wonderful book for those who haven't read it. And Martha Beck has this wonderful program that you discovered and then put to use.
I did. And then, I've been an educator my whole adult life. So I have been a teacher, and I've taught everything from first grade to seniors in high school. And so being a teacher at heart, once I graduated and got my certification from Martha Beck life coach training, I then had to make the decision of what is my niche. And I have to be very honest that autism was not I resisted autism.
I think most people do.
Yes, because
no one wants to belong to that club.
No, and I thought, well, I wanted to pass the baton to my son Joseph because, as you well know, Patty, he's such a profound young man, and he's a great writer and speaker. But he is on the spectrum, so he struggles with some things, and really didn't honestly feel like he had a calling for it either.
Right.
So I let him do Joseph, and then the universe kept giving me these messages. Random people would come up to me from long, long ago when Joseph was first diagnosed, and we started our very first autism support group here in Mountain Home, Arkansas for parents. And back in the 90s, which life for those of you that have been on this journey, the autism journey, longer than some, understand that there were very limited resources at that time.
And you were in a place where there's even fewer resources. Mountain Home, Arkansas isn't a bustling metropolis like being in New York or L.A.
No. And so my husband and I, Joseph's father, we traveled, we dug in our heels, and we tried to find anything that we felt like would help Joseph. And at the time, I was fortunate enough to be a stay-at-home mother. And so all the resources and everything that was working for Joseph, I wanted to share with other parents and moms. And so that's what I use the support group for, is to offer support, hope, knowledge, very similar to what I'm doing there right now.
But it started small. It started locally because there was nothing there for you, and you traveled as far away as Boston to learn about certain therapies.
I did, and it's interesting for me. Yes, I have a college degree and a master's in education, but when you go to Harvard, that's at least for me, it was very intimidating. And I stood with a circle of these brilliant people that had created a program, which I share in my work with moms. Fast forward, it still exists, but in a rural setting, the only way you could get most therapies at that time was if you traveled. And you had to have huge pocket to be able to afford these therapies. And so I really fought and brought programs and software where in a rural setting you could do these therapies with your kids at home.
And you traveled for a year or more with Joseph outside of your hometown to get him some therapies.
Yes, we really did. And Joseph talks about this too. I feel like I'm one of the most fortunate people because I have such a huge support around me, around Joseph, to help us get these therapies. I mean, my parents really stepped in. Our close friends stepped in, my sisters, Joseph's grandparents. Whatever support we needed showed up for us. And I believe in my heart that just gave us more energy to be able to help more people with what we found.
Right. And so talk a little bit about how you progressed to the point where you felt that you had something to offer others in a bigger way.
Yes. Well, when I left education after 20-plus years, and I was searching for the niche, as I said earlier, and the universe kept giving me signs, I decided to go to the source. The reason, which is my son Joseph. And after having a conversation with my son, I decided, okay, I'm going to go all in. I'm back. And I regained my passion that I had earlier when Joseph was very young. And I think what really got me here was the fact that Joseph wanted to be a part of it. And that just gave me so much energy because I know that Joseph has so much to offer. And if we could become a team where I would give the mom's perspective, the parent perspective, and then Joseph could share his perspective of his journey on the autism journey, then we would really be able to help a lot of people.
And you did this first with a webinar or a podcast, didn't you?
Yes. So once Joseph, I asked him, I said, what do you think about a podcast? We could really start there. And he really is the reason that Mother's Guide through Autism came to be, because I directly asked him, Joseph, what have I been to you? And it took him a second. He didn't really come up with a whole lot, which I don't take personal. And then he thought for a second, and he said, I see you on a mountain as a wise man stroking your long white beard. And I thought, wow, well, that's pretty neat. Mm-hmm. And then he said, no, you are my tour guide of life. And from that moment, which is a little over 2 years ago now, we decided that this was Mother's Guide Through Autism, that I was his tour guide, and that is, in fact, what parents are doing. They're guiding their children through their own journey on the autistic spectrum, because often it does feel like a foreign land to our kids.
Oh, yeah. So you talk about healing your heart, this word heart and healing. These are such an inherent part of what you do, Brigitte. You talk about the mama's heart and healing the heart, and people are so wrapped up in their grief and their loss that they forget about the heartfelt stuff. Can you go there a little bit, please?
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, because this is my passion, my journey here is I want to, any mom who's listening to this, really any parents, grandparents, anyone who's listening to this, what I want you to know, the reason healing your heart and going through the grieving process and addressing pain and addressing your fears, why is that so important? Because you are on this autism journey, and the goal is to enjoy the trip. If you can become lighter and enjoy your life, you will also share that energy with your kids. So the most essential piece, and I believe this with all of me, is yes, you need resources. Yes, you need to find answers for your child. But along the way, to offer yourself healing love, self-compassion is the essential piece to this journey. Because with it, you do heal that heart, that pain, the ache that you carry around that you push back and ignore. And when you do start doing this work, you will gain more joy, more happiness. You will live a lighter life, and as a result, so will your family, your children, your relationships. It is the key to living your dreams, your authentic self, alongside your child.
And so what's so beautiful about this book that you and Joseph have written, called The Mother's Guide Through Autism, is that you break this down into small chunks, and in each part of healing your heart, you offer up exercises and activities and questions. It's almost like a workbook from each of the mothers who have lived and walked in your shoes to go back and think about themselves and their hearts and their grief and how to heal their hearts. And I love these activities, these exercises, because they really force people to look deep and to examine their emotions that are impeding their growth and perhaps their children's growth without knowing it. I mean, they're so stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. I love how you just described that, because that's in fact what it does. And what I say a lot throughout this guided book is that this book is guiding the mom. This book is guiding the parent, and I take you from the very moment that you dreamt of being a parent to getting through that hard diagnosis, getting back to hope and dreams and aspirations, and having the tools to do that. When I was in the classroom, students, I would tell them, this life skills class is all about you, and what I'm saying to anyone who picks up this book is written for you. This is about you.
Wow, Brigitte, this is a great place to take a little break. And when we come back, maybe you can even talk about an exercise or two that our listeners can do. Welcome back to the Autism Detectives. This is Patricia Lemer, the author of Outsmarting Autism. And my guest today is Brigitte Shipman. And Brigitte is so excited. Her book is coming out. Brigitte, it's almost up on Amazon. You have a Facebook page, right? Both you and your Mother's Guide group has a group, right? Tell people how to join that.
Sure. We have a private Facebook group. So pretty much if you put in Mother's Guide Through Autism, you will find us. You will find the private Facebook group, which you can join. And I'm excited because it has grown so much. We're over 700 members now.
Oh, wow.
And, yes, and so what I love is giving the moms a safe space to come. They ask each other questions. I chime in. I've seen you offering moms on this private support group Facebook page some great advice as well. And so it's just a great community for moms to join.
Now, when you say it's a safe space, that means that it's confidential?
Yes, it is private, and you have when a mother is interested, you apply to be part of this Facebook group. And my virtual assistant, Sai, who is awesome, she goes through the applications, and once you're accepted, then you understand that this group is solely for support. It's not a place for politics or anything like that. This is just where moms can come to say, hey, I'm having a really bad day, or have you tried this therapy? What do you recommend? Maybe your child's having difficulty with potty training. Does anybody have any ideas out there? So it's to offer hope, support, and inspiration. That's what this group is about.
So when we finished the last section, we talked about maybe you could offer an activity or two that helps with some of these emotions. Can you give us an example of what one of them or two of them in the book?
Yes. One of the things that I feel like I really do preach, but I practice what I preach, that has made a big change in how I live my life, is to practice self-compassion. And what Well, the difference, at least my personal definition of self-compassion versus self-care, is really to do the deep nurturing. Rather, yes, it's so great to go get a massage, to spend time with friends, do special things for yourself, for sure. But when I refer to self-compassion, I really want to build that self-love and practice daily self-kindness, self-compassion, and love.
So how do you do that?
For yourself.
How would you do that?
Okay. I'm going to just do a quick activity. What I would like for anyone listening is to start noticing what your self-talk is. We all talk to ourselves. I do it all the time. And notice, what are you saying to yourself? Write down some of the self-talk conversations that you have with yourself. What are you saying to yourself about yourself? And start noticing that. If it is a lot of negative self-talk, what I would suggest is whenever there's a negative self-talk, turn it around and say, you know what? I really am not stupid. I am not a bad mom. I'm a great mom. I'm a great friend. I do things right. Maybe somebody just judged you at the grocery store. That happened to me so many times, and then you start doubting yourself. And
right, so you antidote the negative.
Yes, we want to change whatever negative self-talk you're having, and just begin with noticing, and then start replacing negative with positive.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, it really is, and it sounds simple, but it's more challenging than one thinks.
I bet. And so you work with people in groups or by themselves? Or you call yourself a coach now. You are a certified Martha Beck coach, which allows you to work with people, correct?
It does. I have a coaching business. I coach moms. I offer group coaching.
Online?
Pardon?
Online, on Zoom?
Yes, ma'am, it is. What I'm excited about is this book that I'm holding in my hand is also going to be my coaching tool, and it's going to be what I'm going to be offering in September. I'm going to offer a group coaching program for moms that and we're going to use Mother's Guide Through Autism as a resource. And as
like a workbook almost.
It is. It is indeed a workbook, and that was the intention of it.
Uh-huh. That's pretty neat. And so when you do this in a group, is it an ongoing group, or are people going to sign up for a specific period of time?
It'll be for a period of time, because one thing I've noticed is that when you ask for a big commitment to a mom who's already stressed out,
right,
that tends to shy them away. So I'm going to give them opportunities of small pieces of commitment, and if they want to keep working with me, great. If they want to come back a year from now, great. Whatever the mom needs.
That sounds neat. And will Joseph be a part of this coaching group, or he's just part of the podcast? And are you still doing the podcast?
We are still doing the podcast. As a matter of fact, this week, which is the last week of April, Joseph, Mother's Guide Through Autism, will be releasing, Joseph's doing a podcast episode where he talks about the behind the scenes of what it was like for him to write his part of the book. And we also have a blog that we release if you join our email list. But Joseph will be a part, but he won't be as big of a part of these programs because he is working full-time as well. And so that's his choice.
Good. So we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll hear more about how you help these moms through autism with your Healing the Heart method, which I just love. Welcome back. This is Patricia Lemer. Today's guest on the Autism Detectives is my friend Brigitte Shipman, talking to us today from Mountain Home, Arkansas. And as Brigitte is releasing her new book, The Mother's Guide Through Autism, she is going to have a release party down there in Arkansas. I might even surprise her and show up. But it's exciting, Brigitte. I helped her edit this book and got to know her son Joseph, who was the catalyst for her life's work today and for this book. So, Brigitte, in the book, you delve deep into the subject of grief. Mm-hmm. And this is a really, really difficult subject that I think you handle so well. Can you tell us a little bit about your own grief and how you guide mothers through their grief in the autism diagnosis?
Yes, this is where I get I'm already passionate, as anyone who's listening can tell, but when you get to the topic of grief, this is where I really, really want to spend some time on with anyone who works with me. And actually the chapter in the book is called Stumbling Through Grief. And
I like that.
I want moms or anyone who's grieving to be able to just say, you know what, I am in denial. You know, I go through the stages of grief, and the one thing that I learned is that I could be in all 5 stages of grief, which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, all at the same time.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
That's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, but what is beautiful about it is just meeting yourself where you're at, day to day.
And being compassionate for yourself.
Yes.
Like you mentioned.
I do, and I give, and again, we've mentioned this is a workbook. This is what I call doing work, but what I really want anyone to understand that's going to be joining me is that each day is your day, and if you're not ready, meet yourself where you're at. So as you're going through your grief, depending on the day, because there are some days that are very, very difficult, that I want you to give yourself the love, the self-compassion, and I want you to create a relationship with your grief. And that can be very scary for someone who hasn't really started working through their grief. And that's why it's important to meet yourself where you're at. And that's what I love about this book, because there are going to be days where you want to pick this book up and you're going to want to do the exercises, and then you might open up the book and you might go, no, not today. I'm going to meet myself where I'm at, and I'm going to go do something kind for myself, and I'll pick it up again tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So this book is your support group for yourself, and when you're dealing with grief, the kindness that you show yourself is essential. Just as you would your very, very best friend who would be grieving or upset, you would be so nurturing to that beautiful friend, and turning that around and using these tools for yourself.
And boy, you had a lot of grief during your tsunamis from one to another, and the classic grief in autism, I think, is this the idea that this child isn't what you expected. The poem that is called Welcome to Holland. When you thought you were going to Italy, you ended up somewhere else with a different kind of child. And not a lesser being, but a different being. And you have to adjust. And grief is a period of adjustment. All those stages that you say may bombard you all at the same time on the same day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's beautiful work because it is what it is, right? It's okay
transformational.
Okay. Yes. My aha when I realized that I kept trying to feel better, and what if I don't feel better one day? But I'm just having a terrible day, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay to not.
It's only one day.
Yes, and I do this exercise for moms if you're having one of those bad days too. It's finding hope, and hope is your North Star out of that dark day. And I also talk about how, although it can be a really dark day where it looks like it's going to storm when the sky is really black, the sun is shining behind those clouds.
Somewhere.
How can we break up those clouds and feel and be part of the sunshine again?
Mm-hmm. So, do you come out of grief gradually, or is it all of a sudden one day the clouds part and you're out? Or does it depend?
I think that's a great question because I think there's a huge misconception about grief. It is as unique as your own fingerprint.
Mm.
And so as you go through, that's why this book is great for you some days, and some days it may be a little harder to do the work. That's why you meet yourself where you're at, because I don't think grief is something that you don't just go through it. You stumble through it.
Uh-huh. And I like that verb.
Yeah, I do too, because that when I was thinking about how to walk a mom through this book, and then I got to the grief chapter, right? And I'm like, no, you don't walk through it, you stumble through it. Because one day you may be like, okay, I'm doing well. You may start feeling a little bit of the acceptance, which is, stage 5. And then something happens, and you get triggered, and you're right back on your knees into that initial grief of, why is this happening, and how do I help my child?
There's an organization in Pittsburgh called Good Grief, and it's a nonprofit with free group sessions for anybody who's experienced losses of any kind. And I love the title because there's two obvious emotions stuck in there that good grief, what happened? And then there's, grief isn't all bad. You can have good grief where you can solve and heal, and I think that's what you help people do.
Yeah,
so, Brigitte,
I love that.
Thank you for including this part. I think this is just such an important part. We need to take another break, and when we come back, you can tell families again more about what you're doing and how Joseph is doing and what some of your plans ahead are. Welcome back to the Autism Detectives. My guest today is Brigitte Shipman, who is holding her long-awaited Mother's Guide Through Autism. Brigitte, that must feel so awesome.
Yes, just listening to you say that, I got goosebumps again because it is I don't even have words. It's just, wow, that's all I can come up with.
And I know you shopped publishers and people to help you put it together, and the proof that I saw, oh my God, they did such a beautiful job. And it has butterflies flying all through it. Tell us about butterflies.
Yes. So the logo to Mother's Guide Through Autism is an orange butterfly, and I use the colors orange and purple because I came up with that on a meditation walk, but Martha Beck also uses the butterfly as a metamorphosis for transformation. And some of the struggles that the butterfly has to go through, those 4 stages, is what the basis of healing is. You know, when you first start on your journey of healing, you're in stage 1, where you're in deep grief, and then we move into dream and scheme, and then, I'm starting to apply my healing, and then living in that healing space. And so the butterfly really, for me, represents transformation, yes, but more about healing the heart.
I love it so much. Brigitte, can you give us some contact information if people want to talk to you or communicate with you or learn more about what you're doing? How do they do that?
Well, go to our website, mothersguidethroughautism.com. As we mentioned earlier, there's also a private Facebook group, Mother's Guide Through Autism, that you can apply to and get really great advice and love and nurturing from other moms. And then there's also our Facebook group, Mother's Guide Through Autism, that you can follow us on, also Instagram. I would also like to mention that I do a lot of coaching throughout the podcast. I also have really knowledgeable guests to help moms and parents and teachers find answers for the kids that they're working with.
How do they access that?
I'm sorry, what?
How do they access, what is it, Alpha Podcast?
It's Apple. You can go
Apple. Okay.
Yes, you can go to Apple, or we also have a YouTube channel now that I'm really excited about.
Wow.
All our episodes that we're recording right now for Mother's Guide Through Autism podcast is also on YouTube. And what I would really, really appreciate is if you go to our YouTube channel and like and subscribe to either the podcast through YouTube or through Apple or Spotify. That would really help us reach more people. So that is the goal, to reach as many people as we can.
And is there an email address, or you just message you through one of the Facebook groups?
If you go to mothersguidethroughautism.com, you can join our email list.
Good.
And I also offer, and this is all free, a 30-minute consult call that you can schedule with me. So if you go to the website, you can schedule 30 minutes with me, and we can visit, see if we're a good fit. You can also learn more about the group coaching and also learn more about our book and the work that we do, and really about our story.
That's cool. So what Joseph is working, I did some radio broadcast work. Is that what he's doing now?
Well, he moved to Jonesboro, Arkansas, which is approximately almost 120 miles away from me a year ago, and is trying to get back into radio. So he worked at our local radio station, but he is volunteering for a radio station there in hopes that an opening will come up, and then that will be his way back into radio, because that's what he loves and he's great at. He's also now a new author, so he's starting to play with that, and he got a full-time job at the university in Jonesboro, and he's working as a full-time custodian, which allows him to have insurance, and he really likes it because he can do his own work that he really wants to do and have time for that. So he's doing really, really well.
And he has a girlfriend.
He does. He met this lovely young lady online, and she's the reason that he moved, and they are living together. They have a couple other roommates, and
wonderful.
I have just sat back and admired my son, because many times our kids are bigger than we can even imagine, and he just keeps showing me that.
Wow. And you have another son, too.
I do. I have Jacob is Joseph's younger brother, and he is not on the spectrum. He is he's pursuing his mechanical engineering degree. He just got an awesome internship at a Toyota, and is thriving. And I love how my two children and their relationship is very unique and also very loving. And I get, the typical child that you would, and I'm doing that in quotations. You can't see me because I don't really know exactly what typical is, but
nobody does anymore.
Exactly.
Right.
But,
he is, you have another book in the works. Perhaps we're going to see another book coming out from you. And what else are you planning?
Well, yes, Is It a God Thing will come out one day, and if you follow us, you'll be the first to know exactly that date. But the other things that I'm planning on doing is just, as I had said, I want to grow Mother's Guide through Autism community. I want to offer more opportunities to
reach more people,
reach as many people as we can. And I mean, this sounds a little corny, but it's not, because I really mean this. I want to help as many moms as I can heal their heart. That is my mission.
Well, I've got a couple ideas of places we can get you on doing some podcasts, and I'll pass your name on to some of those, because this is such an important book, Brigitte, and it's a book that's not like most of those others out there. You come to it from a different angle, and with your personal experience, which we know is just your personal experience, but it's so helpful and can be generalized. So this is the Mother's Guide Through Autism. It will be up online soon. It's got its own website, right?
Yes.
mothersguidethroughautism.com, and the author Brigitte Shipman, Shipman, is on Facebook. And I am just so honored to be a part of your journey, Brigitte. This has been exciting for me, and I can just picture you sitting there holding your book, and there's a Yiddish word that I love. It's kvel, Kvell, and we Jewish mothers, we kvel when our kids do well. It is when you are so proud that you feel it in every cell in your body that you're just shaking. And so I'm kvelling thinking about what you've gone through and what you've produced here.
Well, Patty, it has been my complete honor, and I have tears in my eyes right now. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Look it up. Look up the word, and maybe you'll adopt it.
Maybe I will.
Okay. Brigitte, we'll talk soon, and congratulations on this marvelous achievement.